Hello to you, this is me once again. Thanks for visiting my channel and watching this video. Now, correct me wrong, but I'm pretty sure when this very famous YouTuber called Talk Islam, he made a video of a rap promoting that that's not the man I serve, or it was a very beautiful rap. I'm sure he highlighted Quran chapter 5 verse 32. It's about this verse that's saying that if someone kills a man, it's like killing the whole mankind. I'm sure that bit was in the video, but then somehow disappeared, I think. So please help me on that one. But anyway, I'm making this video because of that verse actually, because a lot of Muslims use Quran chapter 5 verse 32, trying to promote that Islam is indeed a peaceful religion. But I'm here to actually be against that argument, unfortunately.
That has nothing to do with my prophet. Please just stop it. It doesn't make any sense. That's not the message he sent. That's not what he meant. That's not why he came. So you can claim as much as you want to, but I assure you the man I follow was not the same. See, I know a man who forbade the cutting down of a plant, who even spoke against those who had burnt an ant. So why is it that I simply can't understand how we claim to follow the same man? I mean, I know a man who forbade us from harming the innocent, saying he who does so would not only be prohibited from paradise, but he would not even smell its scent. So please tell me how what you're doing has anything to do with the message that he sent. This is the man who forbade us from even scaring cattle with a knife, saying you have no right to let the animal die twice. And when he was asked for advice, he'd reply, don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry, repeating it thrice. See, I know a man who called to patience first, even to those who had treated him the worst. And when he was asked to invoke Allah's wrath, he said, I was not sent to curse, but rather as a mercy to the earth. Matter of fact, the entire universe, meaning everything that was made. See, this is a man whom the clouds would rush to shade, a man to whom the trees would sway and the birds would flock to seek his aid. For they knew he was a man of justice, a man who would never betray, a man who could be trusted even by those who had wanted him slain. See, Anas bin Malik served him for 10 years, and not once had he heard him complain. But he would never get angry for himself, but only for Allah's sake. And he never responded to evil with evil, but rather he pardoned and forgave. But had he been harsh-hearted, the people would have ran away. So what is it that we still don't understand when we claim to follow Islam, yet we fail to follow this man? I mean, I know a man who was so caring and compassionate, who said that there is a reward in serving all things that are animate. In other words, everything that breathes, whether it be the animals, the trees, and every single human being. I mean, if Allah called him Rahmatan lil Alameen, how dare you call him anything else that contravenes? See, this is a man who said that the Muslim was he who is soft, simple, and lenient. A man who taught us himself to be cautious from falling into extremism. See, he was never given two choices except he chose that which was easiest. Not for himself, but for his people and their convenience. See, I know a man who advocated for the freedom of the slaves. A man who taught us that the Muslim is the one from whom the people are safe. Not only from his hands, but even from the words that he says. See, this is a man who would never mock, mimic, nor ridicule, nor would he ever publicly rebuke an individual. This is the man I follow, so forgive me if this sounds unusual. But the man I know was so much more handsome, so beautiful. A man who taught kindness to the neighbors, who taught us to serve others without expecting back any favors, to spread peace to those we know and even to the strangers, to walk with humility and to simply ignore the haters. But nevertheless, I know a man who still taught us to stand up for the oppressed. From the men, women, and children who call out to us in distress. I know a man who taught us to fight for these people, but by no means does this mean we have the right to transgress. For those who oppress have nothing to do with his name. So you can say what you wish to say and continue to defame his name, but at the end of the day, I assure you, the man I follow was not the same. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Now, before I do that, I would like to emphasize what sort of background I'm coming from. If you're an old subscriber of mine, you will see, I'm sure you remember, I used to emphasize this many times, but this is my Quran here. A bit old, Penguin publisher. And also it's actually translated by N.J. Dawood, who's a jurist. So some Muslims actually argued in the old days that because it's a jurist translation, it's not really a proper translation, and that I don't speak Arabic, therefore I'm not really reading the true meaning and so on. And it's just, you see what I mean? The excuse goes on, and that's when I started to give up, because they won. They won the argument of excuses. Not really. Anyway, so I read the Quran cover to cover, and this is not only here, but also all my keynotes here. And I'll get into the point that why I'm emphasizing this. And I do remember this one very important. It's about Allah lying about Jesus Christ. If you want, I'll make that video. So here it goes. It wasn't really a skimming through, but actual proper read of the Quran. And the whole point of me showing this off is I don't really think anyone is allowed to criticize the Quran unless they have studied the whole book. This means from beginning chapter 1 till the end of chapter whatever it is. Same applies to the Bible as well. If you're a Muslim or an atheist, and if you haven't read the Bible, you're not allowed to talk about the Bible, because you're only choosing, cherry picking, that's what they say, the verses that favors your opinion. But in fact, quite a lot of arguments could be disproved, sort of defended, by studying the surrounding verses and so on. So anyway, so my whole point is that if you haven't read the whole book, don't talk about the book. You're not really qualified, honestly. It's like you're going to a book class where people sit down, everyone has read it, but you just saw some of the reviews on internet, and then you're standing up talking gibberish. That's a good example. Anyway, so I am qualified. I can say whatever I want because I know what the Quran is talking about. And I'm sure many Muslims haven't done so. Likewise, Christians, I have to admit, quite a large number of Christians have not read the whole Bible, and that's why you're seeing a lot of dispute going on, unfortunately, in church as well. Anyway, so okay, have you read this book? This is called What Does the Bible Really Teach? It's actually published by Watchtower Society people, also known as Jehovah's Witness, okay? So this will
teach you how Jehovah's Witnesses actually interpreted the Bible. I haven't completed studying this book. I'm actually in the middle of it. Therefore, I will not talk about it. I will keep in silence until I completed my study of this book of Jehovah's Witnesses, of how they understand the Bible. So therefore, no more talking about Jehovah's Witnesses until I finish this. Books down, books up. Have you read this book? It's called the Qur'an. I read this, as you can see, cover to cover, heavily studied. I mean, this doesn't look brand new, as you can see. Very thick. It's much thicker than how I bought it. It was much thinner like that. But I have read the Quran cover to cover. So therefore, I have a right to talk about this book. There you go. Have you read the Bible? Yes, I have. I read this Bible cover to cover. Not this Bible, but different types of Bible as well. Now I'm reading my interlinear Bible because recently I finished my old one, this one actually, cover to cover, third time. So therefore I'm going to integrate my knowledge of the original words into this book called Interlinear, which is written in Greek and Hebrew, the closest original text that you could get into. So therefore, I have the right to talk about the Bible. Have you read about the Gnostic Gospel? Well, I have. I have read this Gnostic Gospel cover to cover. Therefore, I have a right to talk about the Gnostic Gospel. So I'm, this is what I'm trying to get at. If you haven't read the Holy Bible, okay, you have no right whatsoever to talk about it or mentioning any verses that you think that you know about the Bible. Okay, when you mention a verse, you need to completely understand the background and the surrounding verses of it. Now, the ones who actually haven't actually read the Quran, who are actually putting in all the hate verses, which I agree, I do agree about the hate teaching of Quran. It actually made me sick. It actually made me to vomit on the fact that some people actually believe in such hateful teaching. But I do agree about the hate teaching of Quran. It actually made me sick. It actually made me sick. It actually made me sick. It actually made me to vomit on the fact that some people actually believe in such hateful teaching. But what I'm trying to get at, the whole point is, if you haven't read the Quran, you have no right whatsoever to talk about the Quran. But I have. That's why I am talking about it, and I'm trying to communicate with the Muslim out there as well. So here it goes. About the Quran. But I have about the Quran. But I have. That's why I am talking about it, and I'm trying to communicate with the Muslim out there. The Quran, you have no right. People actually believe in such hateful teaching. But what I'm trying to get at, the whole point is, if you haven't read the Quran, you have no right whatsoever to talk about the Quran. But I have. That's why I am talking about it. That's why I am talking about it, and I'm trying to communicate about the Quran. But I have. That's why I am talking about it. Have you read this book? This is called What Does the Bible Really Teach? It's actually published by Watchtower Society people, also known as Jehovah's Witness. Okay, so this will teach you how Jehovah's Witness actually interpreted the Bible. I haven't completed studying this book. I'm actually in the middle of it. Therefore, I will not talk about it. I will keep in silence until I completed my study of this book of Jehovah's Witness, of how they understand the Bible. So therefore, no more talking about Jehovah's Witness until I finish this. Books down, books up. Have you read this book? It's called the Qur'an. I read this, as you can see, cover to cover, heavily studied. I mean, this doesn't look brand new, as you can see. Very thick. It's much thicker than how I bought it. It was much thinner like that. But I have read the Quran cover to cover. So therefore, I have a right to talk about this book. There you go. Have you read the Bible? Yes, I have. I read this Bible cover to cover. Not this Bible, but different types of Bible as well. Now I'm reading my interlinear Bible because recently I finished my old one, this one actually, cover to cover, third time. So therefore I'm going to integrate my knowledge of the original words into this book called Interlinear, which is written in Greek and Hebrew, the closest original text that you could get into. So therefore, I have the right to talk about the Bible. Have you read about the Gnostic Gospel? Well, I have. I have read this Gnostic Gospel cover to cover. Therefore, I have a right to talk about the Gnostic Gospel. So I'm, this is what I'm trying to get at. If you haven't read the Holy Bible, okay, you have no right whatsoever to talk about it or mentioning any verses that you think that you know about the Bible. Okay, when you mention a verse, you need to completely understand the background and the surrounding verses of it. Now, the ones who actually haven't actually read the Quran, who are actually putting in all the hate verses, which I agree, I do agree about the hate teaching of Quran. It actually made me sick. It actually made me to vomit on the fact that some people actually believe in such hateful teaching. But what I'm trying to get at, the whole point is, if you haven't read the Quran, you have no right whatsoever to talk about the Quran. But I have. That's why I am talking about it, and I'm trying to communicate with Muslims out there as well. So here it goes. What I'm trying to get is this. Anyone who haven't actually read the book, any particular book, have no right whatsoever to talk about it. I'm not trying to be strict here, but this is just a basic knowledge. I mean, let's say, oh, here it is. This book is called The Board of Rings. This is actually making a make out of The Lord of Rings. But if I haven't actually read the Board of Rings, this book, and I went to a gathering of people who gather up for the Board of Rings Society, this meeting, and I go there and I pretend, oh yeah, I read that book, I read that bit, that was funny, and people hear you about things that you're trying to impress people with your knowledge, despite you haven't actually read this book. When you make all these false sort of claims of what you understand about this Board of Rings, you make this random words. People will hear you who actually read this book will know, in fact, that you haven't actually read it, and know that they know that you're not understood the book, and they know that you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about regarding this book. What I'm trying to get at, anyway, to this point, is that when you have read about this book, then you have the right to talk about it. When you read about the Bible, you have right to talk about it. It's shocking, actually, that many Christians out there who actually profess they're Christians haven't actually read the Bible. Okay? Now, the problem is this. If they actually haven't fully understood the whole picture of it, and they make a claim to another Muslim, then they're going to make a bad name of Christianity for being exposed, not fully understanding the Bible. I mean, if they read a passage, probably they could share it with you. But what I'm trying to get is this. When you're trying to have a debate or anything whatsoever to talk about Christianity or the Bible or whatsoever, please try to read it and understand it cover to cover first before you actually engage with this subject. That's what I'm trying to say. If you haven't, then you have no right whatsoever to talk about the Bible. Okay? Same goes to Christian. I mean, if you haven't actually read the Quran, don't even talk about the Quran. Listen to what the other Muslims say about it, but also the people who actually read it. Like me, I read the Quran, and therefore I can prove to you this is actually a very violent book because I read it. So this is the logic I'm trying to do. A lot of Muslims come to my website saying, oh, look at Matthew chapter 10 verse 30 or 31 where Jesus says this, that he had a blade, therefore he must have killed someone. This is just nonsense. To someone, obviously this, as a short example, the blade represents his words, his mouth, which pierced the sword. The sword pierced the soul, our own soul. That's sort of powerful, his words and whatnot. So these people are really making such nonsense. I mean, I do really want to engage with the conversation, but they have absolutely zero level of understanding the Bible. Therefore, I always advise them to read the book itself before you actually make any claims whether the Bible is corrupted or not. If you haven't, don't even make any claims whatsoever until you understood this book cover to cover. It's God's word and you should be careful with it. As what James says, small tongue, a small piece of muscle in here, this can bring a great fire to the forest. You should always be careful with your mouth. That's all I want to say. I mean, Muslims, seriously, I am actually considering to filter the comments, especially the ones who are putting in all these spamming things on my website, who show they clearly don't understand. I'm actually trying to restrict that side of filtering the comments. But this is advice for Christians who out there who are trying to have a debate with Muslims. If they talk about the Bible, saying the Bible is corrupted or whatnot, you should first be equipped with the word. Okay? Once you are, you need to ask them this. Ask this question. Have you read the Bible cover to cover? Ask them. Many would say, oh, I read the Bible. But what you need to do is ask them in a more stressful way, more strict way. I don't like to do this, but I have to. And this actually is the only way, it seems to be the only way to dig out their falsehood. What I actually ask them is, okay, how many times swear in the name of your Allah, okay? How many times you read the Quran, not the Quran, the Bible cover to cover? Ask them for the number, okay? And they will actually come up with a really strict, correct answer because they're swearing in the name of Allah, okay? And if they say that they haven't actually read the Quran, the Bible cover to cover, if they haven't understood and they claim they read the Bible, then don't deal with them. There's no point. It's a waste of time. It's their wrong of not understanding the Bible and their wrong of talking about it. There's no point dealing with these people because the argument will never end because they even don't have the foundation of what's actually written in here. So you see my point here. That's the only way it seems to be helping me trying to get out with this conversation. Because I know if you have a conversation with them, it's just endless. They don't want to listen to all these things. It's just my experience sharing with you, and I hope it helped you on this. But overall, what I'm trying to say is this. If you haven't read this, don't talk about it. If you haven't read this, don't talk about it. If you haven't read this, don't talk about it. Listen to what the people who actually read it. That's all I want to say. And if you think they're wrong, try to study your own self and be equipped with the words of what's actually written in there. That's the whole point. Study, people. I mean, is that too much to ask? Anyway, this is Love Jesus Please. Hope this message helped you to become a better Muslim or a better Christian. Anyway.
So I read the Quran cover to cover, and this is not only here, but also all my keynotes here. And I'll get into the point that why I'm emphasizing this. And I do remember this one very important. It's about Allah lying about Jesus Christ. If you want, I'll make that video. So here it goes. It wasn't really a skimming through, but actual proper read of the Quran. about Allah, lying about Jesus Christ. If you want, I'll make that video.
Morality of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is a killer, an enslaver, according to what we're about to see. We're gonna look at what is Jesus' purpose in this life. Well, we're gonna look at Matthew, which is one of the earliest Gospels, Matthew 10:35. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. That sounds very peaceful already. Nice start. Okay? Now, give me a second over here. Let's go back. We're just gonna put there's millions. Let's go to it's already started violence. Somebody that's telling you that you are not, if you can't be my disciple unless you could reject your entire family and be their enemy. Alright? Let's go to Luke 14:26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, I'm reading from BibleHub.com. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Very sweet, Jesus Christ. Very sweet. Very sweet. Now, let's talk about what Jesus wants to do to a woman. Revelation 2:22-23. Indeed, I will cast her into a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation, unless they repent. What he's talking about here, if we have to go back, he's talking about that if a woman eats from a sacrifice that was sacrificed to idols, I will indeed, so technically a woman that just, like, let's say a Buddhist that sacrifices to Buddha and his statue, or eats from a meat, a Christian woman, for example, that eats from the meat of that, just a Christian woman that will eat a meat that was sacrificed for an idol worshiper or an idol god, indeed I will cast her into a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation, unless they repent of their deeds. I will kill her children. This is Jesus Christ, people. I will kill her children with death, and all the churches shall know that I am he who searches the minds and the hearts, and I will give to each one of you according to your works. He searches, he invades your privacy. That bad Jesus Christ that it is. All right? We're just acting like you guys here. I'm just acting like you, Muhammad, right? Remember that? Now, Jesus, let's do it. All right? Luke 19, 29, 34. Stealing. Jesus is telling his disciples to steal. As he approached Bethphage, or whatever that is, and Bethany, at the hill called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden." No one has ever ridden. The funny thing is, that colt has an owner. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, why are you untying it? Say, the Lord needs it. Beautiful. Go steal something. Say, why are you taking this from Walmart? The Lord needs it. Those who were sent ahead went and found it, just as he had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owners, nobody has ridden it, its owners asked them, "Why are you untying the colt?" They replied, "The Lord needed it." Such a beautiful Lord, ain't he? Sweet, very nice. Now let's go back to slavery in the New Testament. Slavery that our friend, Ismail, the smile, remember the smile in the picture? And he's a sheikh. This guy is a psycho. This guy is a sick man who's trying to get recognition from people, and he's going to move around. But you guys are attacking us. We're attacking you this way. What does Jesus say about slavery? Did you know that Jesus actually promoted slavery? Let's walk into Luke 12, 47 to 48. The servant who knows the master's will, meaning what the slave who knows what his master's things that he likes, what he needs. The servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready or does not do what the master wants will be beaten with many blows. Do you want me to slow-mo it for you? Will be Jesus Christ here talking. That slave, if he does not make your grilled cheese really nice, he will be beaten with many blows. You want me to piss you off some more? Blows. How about that? But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment. Let me repeat that because I'm not getting it myself. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten a few blows. Ha! Isn't that beautiful? Are you listening? That's beautiful. Huh? The servant who knows and he fucked up gets beaten up. But the servant who didn't know gets beat up. Still gets beat up. Doesn't get forgiven. Jesus Christ. For everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. He's talking about slaves. Immorality, Ismail. At least bring better, bro. Bring better. You don't change bad with worse. Again, all my videos, I have not defended Islam. At least yet. I'm agreeing with you that Islam is bad. Do not come out and say you're a Christian. Don't. And you won't. And he won't. And I'm telling you. Because it's all over here. Do not come out and say that you're a Jew. Do not come out and say that you're a Noahide. Don't come out and say none of these things. You are toast. You're a failure that is fallen. You think that you will be raised now. It's not going to happen, believe me. Let's move on. What else? You know what? Let's leave it right there. So slavery. What else? Slavery, stealing. This is quick. This is very quick. I'm no scholar. I don't know. This is very quick. I could just go online and find all these things. You could not explain it anyhow. You couldn't. At least if you go to the why this guy is telling people to steal something that's not his. Luke 19, 29 to 34. This guy's telling people to steal. Luke 12:47, this guy's telling you how to beat your slave. Luke 14:26. It's telling you to hate your family, to throw your family away. Why would you do that? If you want to be his disciple, you need to throw your family out. You need to beat your family, get mad at them, tell them you hate them, go against all their values, go against everything. If you want to be his disciple, you will not be worth it. Such a person cannot be my disciple. Even your own life you must hate. Why? Why? Christians come around and say, oh, the Old Testament is you know, it's a covenant with the Jews, but this one is a covenant with everybody. There is enough in the New Testament to destroy the entire religion. So, I'm going, if you can realize this, I'm going ahead of him because, see, he's going into this and that and that and that, so like that he can come, you know, in the end and tell you why now he's at the wait, is that Michael Jackson? Sorry. Okay? Bullshit. Listen, I respect Christian people. I have Christian family members, my in-laws. I have a beautiful aunt-in-law that comes to our home, says Bismillah when she eats with us. Bismillah. Even Bismillah from beginning to end when she forgets. And beautiful people who know, especially the old-timers, they know how to be dressed nicely and conservatively. I have absolutely nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong between us and Christians. It's just that unfortunately those idiots, those assholes, those pieces of shit that come out and start taking the Qur'an and the Hadith and just going and looking for things. I'm showing you how quickly I can destroy your entire religion. Provided that this has been truly said. There is no story behind it. This is commandments. Commandments from Jesus. Okay? Don't hit with stones what you can't when your house is from glass. Don't do that.
His name, but Talk Islam, the prominent Muslim peaceful message sender on YouTube, has clearly, under my recollection, that he has emphasized this first, that if someone kills a mankind, it's like killing the whole. Sorry, if someone kills a human being, it's killing the whole it's like killing the whole mankind. But he has failed to emphasize this part. So I'm going to read the whole. To emphasize this part. So I'm going to read the whole verse, and if you can follow with me, this is great. That'll be great. So here goes. Chapter 5, verse 32. That was why we laid it down for the Israelites that whoever killed a human being, except as punishment for murder or other villainy in the land, shall be deemed as having killed all mankind, and that whoever saved a human life shall be deemed as having saved all mankind. So I hope you catch that bit when I say comma. And what does a comma says? Except as punishment for murder or other villainy in land. So in surface-wise, yes, if you're just skimming through the verse, or you think, oh, what a very nice verse. Oh, it says don't kill a man. Oh, but ISIS are killing mankind, so there must be no Islam and so on. But this actually verse proved that ISIS are actually practicing the actual verse that is written in Quran.
So we had more attempted terror attacks yesterday. this time in Saudi Arabia. Reuters reports suicide bombers struck 3 cities across Saudi Arabia on Monday in an apparently coordinated campaign of attacks as Saudis prepared to break their fast on the penultimate day of the holy month of Ramadan. The explosions targeting U.S. diplomats, Shiite worshippers, and a security headquarters at a mosque in the holy city of Medina followed days of mass killings claimed by ISIS in Turkey, Bangladesh, and Iraq. A Saudi security official said an attacker parked a car near the U.S. consulate in Jeddah before detonating the device. In the only one of the 3 attacks that appeared to have caused many casualties, a suicide bomber detonated a bomb near the security headquarters of the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, the second holiest site in Islam. In Qatif, an eastern city that is home to many members of the Shia minority, at least 1 and possibly 2 explosions struck near a Shia mosque. Okay, so this is the exact same theme that we spoke about yesterday. By the way, in the bombing in Baghdad, in the predominantly Shia district, now the death toll is ticked up to over 150. Yesterday it was 125. Now it's over 150. It just carnage beyond imagination happened there. And this is ISIS after losing Fallujah and losing on some fronts in the territory that they gained. Now they're turning elsewhere and they're running buck wild. So, for example, in Lebanon, there were, I think, 5 suicide bombings in like one day. Again, specifically targeting Shias. You have the situation in Iraq. Again, over 150 people now dead. And now you have they're attacking Saudi Arabia, and they're attacking some of the holiest sites in Islam. And you got to understand, guys, that's the point. ISIS actually wants to overthrow the Saudi monarchy. Now, they have the same ideology. So the Saudi government is Salafi. They're Wahhabi. They spread this poisonous ideology throughout the world. But now you have a situation where, call it what it is, chickens are coming home to roost. They've spread this poisonous ideology, and now it's turning on them. Because they think, no, you're kafir. You're infidels. You're not true Muslims. So look, you got deals with the big bad Americans. We don't trust you. So now we're going to come and overthrow you. So that's what they want to do. They want to overthrow the Saudi government, which is a terrifying thought. The Saudi government needs to be changed anyway, and it needs to not be Salafi and Wahhabi, but you don't want to replace it with an even more hardline version of that ideology. So, man, this is a troubled time to say the least. And yet again, as they explain in detail in all these different articles on this, this was an attempt by Salafi jihadists, people in ISIS, to target Shias in Saudi Arabia. So when you talk about ISIS, you have to understand you're talking about a group that is the enemy of everybody. So here's who they hate. They hate Shias, obviously. They hate Westerners. They hate Jews. They hate Christians. They hate all people they consider infidels, obviously atheists. Saudi Arabia itself says all atheists are terrorists. They also hate moderate Sunni Muslims. Sunni Muslims who don't exactly agree with their extreme interpretation, they have no love for you. Look at what happened in Turkey recently. They tried to get into the area where there were more tourists. They couldn't get into the area, so they're like, fuck it, I'll just kill everybody around me. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of them were Turks. The overwhelming majority of them were Sunni Muslims. I don't care. I don't care. So this is a vehement, extreme form of religion and fundamentalism and Islam here, and it is wreaking havoc. There is no doubt about that. And you would think that this is setting up a rare instance where actually the rest of the people in the world can come together, and I mean everybody else. You would think that this is an instance where Russia and the U.S. can put behind all their problems and all their difficulties over the years, and they can come together. You would think that the U.S. and the Syrian government and the Iranian government, who are also huge, huge, huge targets of ISIS, you would think that all of us could come together. All moderate Sunni nations, all Shia nations, all Western nations, we all come together and we all go, that's the problem! Hello, right here! But no, obviously there's still this strain of thought and there's still this type of action that shows that business as usual still overrides everything. So continue to do business with the Saudi government, who are not a moderate Sunni nation. They're an extremist Sunni nation. still continue to enrich them, still look the other way as they arm Al-Qaeda in Yemen, still look the other way as they arm jihadists and Islamists on the battlefield in Syria. That don't pay any attention to that whatsoever and shove our head in the sand as this cancer, this virus grows. Well, that's a problem, and it should be a time to unify, not a time to break down and continue to act like nothing's wrong and continue to take the business-as-usual approach. So there you have it, man. ISIS is even turning against holy sites in Islam. And they're doing it because if you don't agree exactly with them in every respect, in their crazy, toxic, cancerous interpretation of Islam, you're the enemy.
It would be Amman, the military intelligence. Nothing is more important than you're watching your Arab neighbors for actual movements of troops, how many tanks they have, where are the aircraft. All these other missions that we described are fascinating. And even getting, thousands of Jews into the country is vital. But war, having a sign that war is coming, that's the key, and that's Amman's job.
Which is the second most important?
The Mossad. The problem with Amman, with the military intelligence, is that it lives in the shadow of the flamboyant Mossad. It can be compared to the same problem which is facing United States National Security Agency, NSA. It is the largest, the most important agency in the intelligence community. Yet, the most famous one, which gets media attention, is the CIA. The same is in Israel. The Mossad has become sort of epitomizing the Israeli intelligence. But the most important agency is military intelligence. Mossad comes second, and then you have Shin Bet, the Israeli equivalent to the FBI, in charge of fighting terrorism, counter-terrorism, subversion, trying to foil plots against the state of Israel, political plots, and others.
You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS.
Actual verse that is written in Quran. And here it goes. It says that except as punishment for murder or other villainy in the land.
Therefore, I'm going to integrate my knowledge of the original words into this book called Interlinear, which is written in Greek and Hebrew, the closest original text that you could get into.
So what it means by except as punishment for murder. So if someone committed a murder, you're allowed to kill. It almost sounds like you have to kill this person. Or other villainy in the land. So if you look at other translation, I advise you to do so in the internet. In the internet, or maybe by the Quran. Please don't burn the Quran. You have to use it as a weapon to defend your argument if you want to fight against extremism, by the way. So other villainy in the land, what it means is disturbance in the land. So if someone makes fun of Islam, cause disturbance in Islam, whatever that cause chaos to or affect the Islam itself in the Islamic land, then you're allowed to kill. Almost sounds like you have to kill. So it's not really a peaceful verse. So killing someone without a reason, basically, it's a human logic, isn't it? It's psycho. But this verse is actually putting a condition saying if you translate in other perspective, it's like if you find someone who's a murderer, or if you can't find someone who caused chaos to or disturbance to the Islamic influence, then you have to kill them. And that's what ISIS is, like extremist group like ISIS is doing. And it kind of summarizes, I guess, nowadays Muslims So it's not really a peaceful verse. So religion, as a principle religion, majority apparently. But my input on reading the Quran is that there's so many lies about the Bible, very much of a contrast. I mean, Muslims believe that their Quran is correct because they believe the Bible is corrupted, by the way. But the comparing, in the Quran itself has peaceful message, but the violent instructions supersedes it seems it's very much supersedes the peaceful message. So if you actually read the whole Quran, you get a picture of, well, it's not really that much of a peaceful religion at all, and you've got to be really careful reading such verse as that, because you can miss things out that are very important. I mean, if the religion textbook talks about peace all the time, that's good, but you know, why is Islam a religion? Is because I guess it has some of the peaceful messages, but unfortunately it's superseded by aggressive verse. And let's say if there was only fully aggressive verse, like cut off their hands or heads, if it's full of that, then it's not really a religious book, is it? It's an instructions of war book, of instructions of how to kill others or punish others and blah blah blah. Anyway, hands or heads. If it's full of that, then it's not really a religious book, is it? It's
We're just acting like you guys.
I hope I made a fair point here. This is actually an official response to that username called Talk Islam. I think your video was quite nice, but I do have to highlight this because somehow I'm fed up with Muslims trying to falsely promote Islam as peaceful religion by using a certain verse that actually says, in fact, if you're a murderer or if you cause disturbance to Islam, you're allowed to kill them. That sort of verse should be highlighted. And basically, the whole point of this is not trying to cause disturbance. It's just to talk about the truth, what's really going on. And I really hope that Muslims omit the faults when it is highlighted, and that we should find an agreement. Otherwise, there's not going to be any progress made regards to Islamic terrorism going on around the world. We saw yesterday in Germany 2 or 3 attacks again. It's going on and it's not stopping. But I think really we really need to be educated with the reality of Quran. Everyone needs to study the Quran rather than burn it. Everyone needs to study the Bible before they talk about the Bible, if they want to talk about the Bible, that is, and omit it when faults have been raised, and if they believe that it is the fault. Anyway, I hope this video helped you to understand more about the Quran and reality of it. And Muslims, I mean, it's just a simple message, but I think it summarizes it. That if you find that some people are lying, you should really omit that as well. And I think the world will be a better place to live with less terrorism and less murdering going on. Anyway, this is Lovejesusplz. God bless you all. Thank you for watching my video. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Lovely to see you all here tonight. We are having a very entertaining night, are we not, with some very interesting things being said from the other side of the house tonight. Let me begin by saying, as a Muslim, as a representative of Islam, I would consider myself an ambassador for Islam, a believer in Islam, a follower of Islam and its Prophet. So, in that capacity, let me begin by apologizing to Anne-Marie for the Bali bombings. I apologize for the role of my religion and me and my people, for the killing of Theo van Gogh, for 7/7. Yes, that was all of us. That was Islam, that was Muslims, that was the Quran. I mean, astonishing claims to make in the very first speech on a day like today, where the Conservative Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is having to come out and point out that these kind of views are anathema. And I believe you're trying to stand for the Labour Party to become an MP in Brighton. If you do, and you make these comments, I'm guessing you'll have the whip withdrawn from you. But then again, UKIP's on the rise. They'll take you. The BNP, they might have something to say about your views.
What Mehdi Hassan always does.
By the way, just on a factual point, since we heard a lot about the second speaker, about how backward we Muslims all are, on a factual point, you said that Islam was born in Saudi Arabia. Islam was born in 610 AD. Saudi Arabia was born in 1932 AD. So you were only 1,322 years off. Not bad? Not bad start there. Talking of maths, by the way, a man named Al-Khawarizmi was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, a Muslim, worked in the golden age of Islam. He's the guy who came up with not just algebra, but algorithms. Without algorithms, you wouldn't have laptops. Without laptops, Daniel Johnson tonight wouldn't have been able to print out his speech in which he came to berate us Muslims for holding back the advance and intellectual achievements of the West, which all happened without any contribution from anyone else other than the Judeo-Christian people of Europe. In fact, Daniel David Levering, the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and author of The Golden Crucible, points out that there would be no Renaissance, there would be no Reformation in Europe without the role played by Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd and some of the great Muslim theologians, philosophers, scientists in bringing Greek text to Europe. As for this being our university, I will leave that to the imagination as to who is our and who is there. I studied here too. An astonishing set of speeches so far making this case tonight. A mixture of just cherry-picked quotes, facts and figures, self-serving, selective, a farrago of distortions, misrepresentations, misinterpretations, misquotations. Daniel talked about my article in the New Statesman, which got me a lot of flack, where I talked about the anti-Semitism that is prevalent in some parts of the Muslim community, which indeed it is. Of course, I didn't say in that piece that it was caused by the religion of Islam. In fact, modern anti-Semitism in the Middle East was imported from, finish the sentence, Christian, Judeo-Christian Europe, where I believe some certainly bad things happened to the Jewish people. In fact, Tom Friedman, Jewish-American columnist in the New York Times, told me in this very chamber last week that he believed, had Muslims been running Europe in the 1940s, 6 million extra Jews would still be alive today. So I'm not going to take lessons in anti-Semitism from someone who's here to defend the Judeo-Christian values of a continent that murdered 6 million Jews. Moving swiftly on.
We're just acting like you guys.
In this very chamber last week that he believed, had Muslims been running Europe in the 1940s, 6 million extra Jews would still be alive today. So I'm not going to take lessons in anti-Semitism from someone who's here to defend the Judeo-Christian values of a continent that murdered 6 million Jews. Moving swiftly on. Moving swiftly on. Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm about to make that point. No, I'm about to make that point. You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you 110%. That is my point. I don't think Europe is evil or bad. I'm a very proud European. I don't want to judge Europe on the basis, but if we're going to play this gutter game where we pull out the Bali bombing and we pull out examples of anti-Semitism in the Islamic community, then of course I'm going to come back and say, well, hold on. I mean, look, let's be very clear. Daniel here was a last-minute replacement for Douglas Murray, who had to pull out. And Douglas and I have a well-documented differences, but to be fair to Douglas, as to be fair to Anne-Marie and to Peter, atheists. Atheists see all religions as evil, violent, threatening. What the problem I have with Daniel's speech is that Daniel comes here to run this robust defense of Christianity, forgetting that his fellow Christians, people who said they were acting in the name of Jesus, gave us the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the anti-Jewish pogroms, European colonialism in Africa and Asia, the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda, not to mention countless arson and bomb attacks on abortion clinics in the United States of America to this very day. I would like a little bit of humility from Daniel first before he begins lecturing other communities and other faiths on violence, terror and intolerance. But, no thank you. Some water. But I would say this, to address the gentleman's very valid point here, I'm not going to play that game. I don't actually believe that Christianity is a religion of violence and hate because of what the LRA does in Uganda or what Crusaders did to Jews and Muslims in Jerusalem when they took back the city in the 12th or 13th or whatever century it was. I believe that Christianity, like Islam, like pretty much every mainstream religion, is based on love and compassion and faith. I do follow a religion in which 113 out of the 114 chapters of the Qur'an begins by introducing the God of Islam as a God of mercy and compassion. I would not have it any other way. I don't follow a religion which introduces my God to me as a God of war, as some kind of Greek God of wrath, as a God of hate and injustice. Not at all. As Adam pointed out, you go through the Quran and you see the mercy and the love and the justice. And yes, you have verses that refer to warfare and violence. Of course it does. This is not a motion about pacifism. I'm not here to argue that Islam is a pacifistic faith. It is not. Islam allows military action, violence in certain limited contexts. And yes, a minority of Muslims do take it out of that context. But is it religious? We talked about Woolwich. Daniel and Anne-Marie have suggested that it's definitely religion that's behind all of this. Well, actually, what I find so amusing tonight is we're having a debate about Islam, and the opposition tonight have come forward. We have a graduate in law, a graduate in modern history, a graduate in chemistry, and, you know, I admire all of their intellects and their abilities, but we don't have anyone who's actually an expert on Islam, a scholar of Islam, a historian of Islam, a speaker of Arabic, even a terrorism expert or a security expert or a pollster, let alone to talk about what Muslims believe or think. Instead, we have people coming here, putting forward these views, putting forward these sweeping opinions. Listen to Professor Robert Pape of the University of Chicago, one of America's leading terrorism experts, who, unlike our esteemed opposition tonight, studied every single case of suicide terrorism between 1980 and 2005, 315 cases in total. And he concluded, and I quote, "There is little connection between suicide terrorism and Islamic fundamentalism or any of the world's religions. Rather, what nearly all suicide terrorist attacks have in common is a specific secular and strategic goal to compel modern democracies to withdraw military forces from territory that the terrorists consider to be their homeland." And the irony is, when we talk about terrorism, the irony is that the opposition and the Muslim terrorists, the Al-Qaeda types, actually have one thing in common. Because they both believe that Islam is a warlike, violent religion. They both agree on that. They have everything in common. Osama bin Laden would be nodding along to everything he's heard tonight from the opposition side. He agrees with them. The problem is that mainstream Muslims don't. The majority of Muslims around the world don't. In fact, a gentleman here started quoting all sorts of polls. Gallup carried out the biggest poll of Muslims around the world, of 50,000 Muslims in 35 countries. 93% of Muslims rejected 9/11 and suicide attacks. And of the 7% who didn't, they all, when polled, and focus groups, cited political reasons for their support for violence, not religious reasons. And as for Islamic scholars and what they say, well, Daniel talks about our University of Oxford. We'll go down to Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies, get hold of a man named Sheikh Afifi al-Akiti, who is a massively well-credentialed and well-respected Islamic scholar, who has studied across the world, who in the days after 7/7 published a fatwa denouncing terrorism in the name of Islam, calling for the protection of all non-combatants at all times, and describing suicide bombings as an innovation with no basis in Islamic law. Go and listen to Sheikh Tahir al-Qadri, one of Pakistan's most famous Islamic scholars, who published a 600-page fatwa condemning the killing of all innocents and all suicide bombings unconditionally without any ifs or buts. There's nothing new here. This is mainstream Islam, mainstream scholarship, which has said this for years. You don't go out and kill people willy-nilly in the high street or anywhere else, on a bus or a mall, based on verses of the Qur'an that you cherry-pick without any context, any understanding, any interpretation, or any commentary. Please. Well,
it doesn't happen apparently.
I didn't say it doesn't happen at all. I never said it didn't happen. I don't blame Islam. Yes, it's a very good point. And a lot of us are campaigning against that. And we're campaigning against it in the name of Islam. We're campaigning against it in the name of various interpretations of Islam. Anne-Marie comes and scares us with her talk of Sharia law. I would like to see the book of Sharia law. It doesn't exist. People argue over what Sharia law is. And you empower the extremists by saying there is only one version. You empower them all. I don't believe you took any interruptions, Anne-Marie, so I think you should stay there for a moment. Here's what we're dealing with. Here's what we're dealing with. We are dealing, I took your point. Here we are dealing with a 1400-year-old global religion, followed by 1.6 billion people in every corner of the world, a quarter of humanity, of all backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities. And yet the opposition tonight wants to generalize, stereotype, smear, in order to desperately win this debate. And here's my question, if we're going to generalize and smear. If, okay, people say yesterday's bombers, and we've got to be careful, there's a trial going on, were yesterday's attackers, motivated by Islam? Big debate. I don't believe they were. Let's say they were. Let's say Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square bomber, was motivated by Islam. Let's assume, for sake of argument, that Richard Reeves, the shoe bomber, was motivated by Islam. If Islam is responsible for these killings, if Islam is what is motivating these people, and Islam is therefore not a religion of peace, a religion of war, then ask yourself this question: why aren't the rest of us doing it? Why is it such a tiny minority of Muslims are interpreting their religion in the way that the opposition claim they are? Let's assume there are 16,000 suicide bombers in the world. There aren't. Let's assume there are for the sake of argument. That's 0.001% of the Muslim population globally. What about the other 99.99% of Muslims who the opposition tonight either ignore or smear? The reality is that the rest of us aren't blowing ourselves up tonight. The reality is that the opposition came here tonight not worried about the fact that me and Adam might pull open our jackets and blow ourselves up tonight because we're followers of a warlike warrior religion which wants to take over Europe and Daniel's university. The issue is this. The issue is this. Unless the opposition can tell us tonight, and Peter Atkins is here, one of our great atheist intellectuals, can tell us tonight, can answer this question tonight, why don't the vast majority of Muslims around the world behave as violently and aggressively as a tiny minority of politically motivated extremists? Then they might as well give up and stop pretending they have anything relevant to say about Islam or Muslims as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this to you. Think about what the opposite of this motion is. If you vote no tonight, think about what you're saying the opposite of this motion is. That Islam isn't a religion of peace, it's a religion of war, of violence, of terror, of aggression. That the people who follow Islam, me, my wife, my retired parents, my 6-year-old child, that 1.8 million of your fellow British residents and citizens, that 1.6 billion people across the world, your fellow human beings, are all followers, promoters, believers in a religion of violence. Do you really think that? Do you really believe that to be the case? They say that in the Oxford Union, the most famous debate was in 1933 when Adolf Hitler looked out for the result of the King and Country motion, where they voted against fighting for King and Country, and Hitler was listening out for the result. Well, tonight, 80 years on, there are two groups of people around the world who I would argue are waiting for the result of tonight's vote. There are the millions of peaceful, non-violent, law-abiding Muslims both in the UK, Europe, Asia, Africa and beyond, who see Islam as the source of their identity, as a source of spiritual fulfillment, of hope, of solace. And there are the phobes, the haters, the bigots out there who want to push the clash of civilizations, who want to divide all of us into them and us and ours and their. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you all not to fuel the arguments of the phobes and bigots. Don't legitimize their divisions. Don't legitimize their hate. Trust those Muslims who you know, who you've met, who you hear, who don't believe in violence, who do want you to hear the peaceful message of the Qur'an as they believe it to be taught to the majority of Muslims, the Islam of peace and compassion and mercy, the Islam of the Qur'an, not of Al-Qaeda. Ladies and gentlemen, I beg to propose this motion to the House. I urge you to vote yes tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Welcome, everybody. Okay. I'm not sure where to start, except I'll start when I came to Pal Talk. If some of you know who I am, my handle used to be Warrior 2004. I used to be in the hate rooms, in the Christian hate rooms here in social issues. I started out in social issues, and I started talking to different Christians in the room, and I started hearing about Islam. I knew nothing about Islam before I came to Pal Talk. Nothing. Except what I heard, you know, with 9/11. That's all I knew. So I was in the hate rooms for about, I guess, 4 years now. And I did a lot of bashing. I did a lot of things that I can look back on now and I regret. And I really don't want to get into that. I want to talk about how I finally realized about Islam. That's what I want to talk about. First of all, I have to say I knew Nader Ahmed. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. And I knew other brothers of Islam in the room. Hamza was another one that I remember. Hamza 41. And I remember I used to PM monkeypox as I knew him, and I used to bash him so bad. I told him how much I hated Islam. I hated Islam because I didn't understand Islam. See, a lot of the haters do not understand Islam. They are learning Islam from Christians. And see, one thing I had to learn was, you don't go to a Christian if you want to learn about Islam. If you want to learn about Islam, you go to a Muslim, somebody who knows about Islam. Just like a Muslim wouldn't go to a Muslim to learn about Christianity. If you want to learn about Christianity, you go to a Christian. Well, it took me 4 years to figure this out. And I stayed in the rooms. I did what I did. And about a year ago, I don't know why, but I sat in the room one day, and this is one of the hate rooms I was in. And I was watching the Christians. As I sat there and watched them, I remembered Jesus' words, where he said to love. And I'm thinking to myself, I was not loving the Muslim. I was showing hate. I was showing no respect. Can everybody still hear me? Am I still here? Okay. I was showing so much hatred because I was scared. I did not understand Islam. I was scared. I was scared of how you dressed. I was scared of how you talked. I was scared of all of it because nobody explained it. And I didn't take the time to want to listen either. So what I did was I went off Pal Talk. I went off Pal Talk and I started thinking, now would Jesus really want me to hate the Muslims? No, he would not. He would not want me to do that. As I began to think about things, I thought to myself, how am I going to learn about Islam? I was going through some personal stuff, and I came online under my other nick, which some of the Muslims know. My real name is Penny. I came under that nick. And I remember I started sending messages to Abba, and I told him that I was curious about Islam. I didn't understand it or anything, but I was curious. And I was going through some things with my husband and stuff, and he wasn't agreeing to what I was doing, coming into talking to Abba and stuff, and he was upset. And I continued to do that. I took off for a couple months, and I stopped talking to Abba, and because I had to straighten some other things out in my own personal life. Yes, miss, it's me. But I kept thinking to myself, I have to find out more about Islam. And I cannot go back into the hate rooms to find out. I had to find it out on my own. I started reading the Qur'an. And when I did that, I finally realized how wrong I was. I was so wrong about the Qur'an. I was so wrong about Muhammad. Peace be upon him. I didn't understand the times back when our prophet Muhammad was alive. Peace be upon him. I didn't understand all that. See, I was looking at things from today. I didn't understand the story about Aisha and Muhammad. Peace be upon him. I didn't understand any of it because I was looking at today's world. I wasn't looking about back in those times. And I regret it now, but I can't change what I've done. But yesterday morning, I came into the room. Well, I actually came and PM'd Abba. And I knew that I wanted to be a Muslim. I knew this was the right thing to do. And I knew that Allah would accept me. And yesterday morning, I came in and I PM'd Abba. And he said, well, not so fast, not so fast. And I said to him that he was willing to, you know, talk with me and stuff, and we did all that. And I told him, I said, today, I must accept Islam today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. I've been waiting for a long time for a peace inside my heart that I never found in Christianity. No, I do not hate the Christians, okay? But I know one thing, I have a peace in my heart that I've never had in Christianity. There's a peace that nobody can take from me, and I will never give up. And yesterday I said to Abba, I said, Abba, I want to accept Islam now, right now. And he said to me, okay. And he brought me to the room. And I said to him, now, right now, in front of all you people, whoever was in the room yesterday heard it. I took my Shahada. And it was the most awesome feeling that I ever had in my life. I've had a peace that I never had since then. I'm still learning. I still have a lot of growing to do. You know, it's funny because I went into my old room today because I wanted to share it with the Christians. I wanted them to know I am now Muslim, and I'm not ashamed. See, this is what I have decided. I was a very strong Christian woman, and if anybody knew me in here, you knew that. I was very strong, and I am going to be just as strong in Islam as I was in Christianity, because I now know that I have been lied to and that Islam is the truth. And I pray for any Christian in here, if you're listening to me and you're a Christian, I pray that Allah showed you the truth, because He is the truth. There's only one God. There's not three gods. There's only one God. God has no distinctions. I hope you're listening to me, Christians in the room. God has no distinctions. There is one God, period. His name is Allah. And Allah loves you as well as us. And I pray that you come to the truth and learn what I have. Christianity lied to me for many years. I grew up in the Christian church. I was a Bible college student for 4 years. I have been lied to, and now I found the truth. Thank you for allowing me to share, brothers and sisters in Islam. And one more thing I wanted to say about is examine the truth.